my view, there are three decisive moments in the history of cost, and all of them are related to major key issues that have underpinned cost through all his history. Its legal status and its position within the R&D landscape. The first moment was in 1978, when the Commission took over the Cost Secretariat. That it was key for cost. It was the beginning of its success and secure its survival. Because at the moment cost has a very unbalanced membership. Many of the cost countries, 19 at the time, were not members of the European Community, which were only 6. And that imbalance was heavily weighted against cost. The second decisive moment came with the launching of the first framework program, because again, cost was questioned in terms of its position and role. When the Commission 3 years later decided to maintain its support to cost and to continue giving the Secretariat for cost, was really a life save for it. This situation continued for the consecutive framework programs, but the workload of the Commission services were increasing and increasing for each of them, with more budget and more initiatives. It became a time where the tension between this workload and the maintenance of the Cost Secretariat was at such a level that in 2002, at the beginning of the 6th framework program, the Commission decided to externalize the supporting of the cost operations. For cost, it was a very difficult time. The Committee of Senior Officials was split between the establishment of the cost of the legal structure, which was rejected, and to nominate an external agent, which at the time was the European Science Foundation, as the implementing agent of cost, and that was the 2002. I think then, when the Cost Association was established in 2003, all these loan disputes had been settled and resolved. In a way, a barrier and an opportunity. A barrier because not having a legal status has put the cost in a very complicated decision-making process. As an opportunity, the intergovernmental structure has provided a very flexible, lightweight, and adaptable platform for international cooperation at European level. And that is one of the reasons that has provided a very clear added value and permitted cost to survive during all these 50 years. Cost has been very important in opening up the borders between the Western and the Eastern Europe. I would like to say that cost has bound these two parts of Europe from the very beginning. Its membership was participated by, at the time, Yugoslavia from the very beginning, and now the 7 countries that has evolved after the disappearance of Yugoslavia are part of COST members nowadays. In addition, COST has been open towards the Eastern Europe since the beginning until now. So, in a way, COST has always been a bound between the two parts of Europe. Now, let's be clear, The gap between Western and Eastern Europe in research will not be solved by opening up their borders. That gap will need commitment, time, and money in order for these countries to adapt and transform their systems and research institutions. The establishment of the COST Association was supported by three facts. Firstly, that the European Science Foundation branch in Brussels, which was in charge of the COST operations, were very mature and prepared to be run by itself after 11 years of doing the work for COST. Second, that the European Science Foundation was heavily contested at the time by its member organizations regarding its role and its mission. And thirdly, because it was a really relevant conflict in terms of responsibilities and to whom to respond to in the COST office between the Committee of Senior Officials and the European Science Foundation. It was a time with an increasing tension between the two organizations, and that tension needed to be resolved. So when I took the presidency, one of my first decisions was to start to work for the good of COST in solving this problem. I immediately started working for the establishment of the COST Association, and in parallel to negotiate with the European Science Foundation the transfer of the COST office to the new COST Association, what was once it was established, and that meant the transfer of the personnel, the contracts, and the goods. It was very, very intensive time in terms of work and discussions. The new submission, evaluation, selection and approval of COST proposal was put in place to serve the new needs of the research community. The COST proposals were evaluated and selected by 9 domain areas. Those domain areas were some of them very broad and some of them very narrow, which make an imbalance in terms of the number of submissions and in their success rate. To overcome this and the need for more multidisciplinary and interdisciplinary approach to solve the very complex questions that the research community were facing, it was a clear need and an urgency to put in place an evaluation system that will take into account this new approach. And in that sense, the new procedure also was able to break down quite a few very strong impediments. One was that the proposals that were touching several disciplines were never able to succeed in the old domain structure. In the new system, the proponents decided which expertise or a scientific area will be optimal to evaluate their proposals. In that sense, they have a much fairer evaluation. The second thing is that the proponents are unknown to the evaluators, and the unconscious bias regarding gender or nationality have been put down. So this is a second barrier that we have removed. And finally, the approval procedure is so easy and fast that the researchers found that once the proposal had been selected, they could start to work very quickly and fast. So in a way, and in my view, the new system is at the forefront of the scientific evaluation. It has fulfilled a very important niche and role, and very likely we may see in the future the other funding organization will use it, of course, reworking it for their specific needs. The establishment of the COS Association and its statutes that define the roles, responsibilities, and reporting lines between the different COS bodies, the evaluation and assessment system for the COS proposals that we have already talked about, and the COS Scientific Committee. The COS Scientific Committee has a very relevant role. It has to give advice in scientific matters to the committee of senior officials, and it has to supervise the evaluation and assessment of the COS actions. My best memories at the personal level are so many, but I would like to refer particularly to two of them. One was the COS Ministerial Conference in 2010. That was the beginning of my term as a president. At the time, I was heavily involved with the European Union, Spanish presidency of the European Union, and the COS Ministerial Conference in Mallorca was the last of these events that took place. At that conference, also, we give a very important farewell to a very charismatic person, the former president of COS, Professor Fedi. As I said, it was also the beginning of my presidency, and I was completely devoted to it. As the start of this period, I resigned to all my duties at the ministry, and I handed my research group to a younger colleague. That time was for me full of expectations, uncertainties, hopes, and certainly a very strong commitment for the job. The second event, which is really hurtful and joyful for me in COS, was the 40th anniversary of COS, which took place at the European Parliament. That was a time of reunion. Very important people that have played a key role in the history of COS was there, coming from, and many friends, and coming from the Commission, the Council Secretariat, the CSO, the COS office. I have a very fond memory, in particularly of the Council Secretariat and in the person of Ula Messia. Their help and advice of chairing a so difficult committee of the CSO as sometimes could be was very important for me. And actually, the establishment of the COS Association, which actually was the end of this link with the COS Secretariat, it was one of the most challenging times for me at the time. COS should maintain the niche and the complementarity with the other European research cooperation initiatives. It has to embrace the digital transformation, allowing the COS actions to be funded in much more digital instruments than it is now, and has to provide a place where unorthodox, novel, crazy solutions are tested by open network of researchers. Cost in one word would be link or channel. Cost in one sentence is bringing together expertise and talent to test unorthodox, novel and fresh ideas that will create our future.